Hello, football family. Welcome into Huddle It Up Films, the first of 5 draft shows coming here live Monday nights, 9 o'clock. Special guests coming in and out. Leading off the guests, one of my favorite people, does some of the best content on YouTube when it comes to Ravens, dabbles in other teams as well. You guys will know him, recognize him, and it's just a pleasure to have him on the show to kick off this draft coverage. Going to talk about some edge players, some O linemen, first round targets, mid round targets, that kind of thing. Without further ado, here he is, Coach DC from All 22 Films, a man that shares a similar journey to me, Coach, because both of us posted College All 22. I got 2 strikes. Luckily, I only posted 2 videos. But unfortunately for your All 22 Cuts channel was terminated, and you're back at All 22 Films
Yeah,
and
man.
kicking butt. How are you doing, Coach? And thank you so much. You know it means a
Good,
lot.
man. Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. It's always fun. Like I was saying earlier, it's crazy that the draft is back so soon. It really seems like I forget what it is that Harbaugh says the days are long, but the years are short, or something like that.
That's right.
It cycles through so quickly. But yeah, I topped you as far as copyright strikes. I think I had 17.
Yeah.
So, but no more college film for me online. But you and I both have watched a significant amount offline and tried to analyze it to the best of our abilities. And it's fun to think about and to project what the Ravens could do, because the reality is this is a much better draft than many people initially gave it credit for. I think we're in agreement there. There's a lot of people who are not. And I think there's going to be great options at. There might be too many great options at 27, Jason, and then the ensuing picks. I think the Ravens can really they can do some damage in this draft, whether we use all 11 or 10 or 9 or whatever they do. I fully expect them to use at least 9. I think it's a really good draft, and I think you can get good players in the fourth, fifth, and sixth round. And Eric DaCosta and those guys in the front office, they're tasked or charged with doing that, and I think they've got a great opportunity to do so. No excuses.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit unfair, and I haven't seen any negative press or a lot of negative press on the draft, but a lot of times, Coach, the draft gets tied to, or the quality of the draft gets tied to the top of the draft. So you look at other drafts, and what was it, 2021? There were just a ton of star impact, can't miss, quote unquote, type prospects. This draft isn't like that, and if I were to knock the draft, it would just be the top. This is not a good year to pick seventh, eighth, ninth, because the pick that the Ravens are going to get at 27 is going to be a very similar talent to the guys picked up at 7, 8, and 9. And I think this is the kind of draft where you want to trade backs, have a lot of picks. And, Coach, we have a lot of picks. We have all our starters, but basically two spots. The spot next to Roquan at linebacker and Brandon Stevens is gone. So this is the
Yep.
perfect draft to have a lot of picks and have a lot of depth. And I talked to you, over 300 guys studied, Coach. Usually I'm on around 240, 250. This year, 300 guys study. I like the defensive line group itself. I studied over 30 guys, and they just kept coming out bigger, faster, stronger. It was just an amazing draft.
There's money to be made there, so it makes sense that people are players, athletes are funneling themselves maybe into those positions. But the coaching is also improved across the board. I think there's a wider net of highly coached defensive lines. Look, the what goes on in college is very equitable to the way that the game is coached to the NFL. I think it was not Brandon Simmons. I'm butchering the name. My apologies. Defensive tackle that played for us for a long time. Went to the Chiefs. I can't believe I can't remember his last name.
Williams.
Yeah, thank you. He said at one point, he said, we read blocks in the NFL. We respond and react to blocks. We don't just get upfield. And I agree with that statement at the time, but I would say that I think there is a more disciplined, studious, procedural way that defensive line is coached at the college level, and it doesn't surprise me that you see more good players at defensive end, D tackle, nose tackle. It's a great group. I agree. I think the corner group is better than people give them credit. I think the receiver group is better than people give them credit. find myself watching film and getting to the third or fourth game of a player. And as we said a little bit earlier before the show, who is that guy? Who is that D tackle?
Right.
Who is that corner on the other team? And then finding myself branching off and watching film of that player. I like the draft. I think it's a great.
Yeah.
It's every year is fun, but this one I think is even more fun. And I think it's a cop out for some people to just throw the label at this draft and say it's a thin draft. Well, it might be thin at the top, like you mentioned. That just means you got to work a little harder and a little smarter to find the players that are going to work for your system and for your team. And that's what we try to do. Both of us with our limited ability or skill and time. It's pure fun for me, even though, like I said, at this point, unfortunately, can't put the film on our YouTube channels. So
very selective. And coach, I'm brutally honest, as you know, behind the scenes when it comes to prospects. And, part of the reasons I don't publish my notes is that I'd have to clean them up too much. And if it was a bad draft, I'd tell you. If it was to me, it is not. Of course, that's just my opinion. I want to give a shout out, man. First of all, the Flock Rundown, excellent channel. Support each other on Twitter, X. If you don't subscribe, if you haven't checked out the Flock Rundown, he's still kind of new, but he is rolling with subscribers. Thank you for checking in. Love that. John Parsons with the Me Too. Didn't see what you said, Me Too, but I'm glad you joined, John. Would love to hear some of your opinions on there. And RG checking in. I think this class of defensive linemen is deep. They are, RG, and you know what? A lot of them are Ravens-looking guys. There are some guys that you look at, and yes, they can put pressure on the passer, but this organization emphasizes run defense. If you don't play run defense, you're really not a target of this draft. You got to be able to two-gap. You've got to be able to contain rush. You got to have a rush plan of attack on some of these mobile quarterbacks. And this draft defensive lineman is full of big guys. Now, I wanted to ask Coach, first question here coming at you. We're talking about the edge players, focusing on a lot in this episode here, and the O linemen. If it comes to pick 27, say there's one particular edge that we like, one particular guard, say, or tackle that we like, and we got almost exact similar grades, excuse me, on those players. To me, I think the Ravens would prioritize edge in that case. Not sure. I'd like to hear anybody else's opinion. How do you think they weigh in the first round of this draft? If they have an edge player, O lineman, do they prioritize one over the other?
Tough decision, I think, because there is depth in both of those spots, and regardless of what we all think of receiver in this draft, at some point there'll be a run on receivers. There is every draft, just depending on where it occurs. At some point there'll be a run on tackles. Just depends on when it occurs. That helps the Ravens. I think it's Frank and Stacy and a couple of guys in the Discord are constantly saying that, hey, we're in a great position to have 2 or 3 really good players available or funneled down to us at 27. The edge versus offensive line, look, if we don't improve our interior guard play, at least one of them, we cannot beat the good defenses in the playoffs, period. That's my opinion. I'm unmoved from it because I sat and watched the end zone film for 2024 after watching the end zone film of 2023. The reality is, in 2023, John Simpson was not as good as the contract that he got from the Jets. I'm glad he did get that contract. I'm glad that he moved on. We did not upgrade there in 2024. We certainly did not upgrade at right guard, even though Falele improved over the course of the season. Fine. What's your standard? Are you willing to accept what we saw late in the season and then the playoffs against Buffalo? If you are, congratulations. You're signing the Baltimore Ravens up to get their ass beat at the interior offensive line every year in the division round or the AFC Championship game. We need to improve the interior offensive line. Am I saying we should pass on some crazy scenario where a Jalen Walker is there or someone? No. It's a tough decision. I really like 4 or 5 of the guys out there in this draft. I'm a huge fan of Braden Swinson. I'll be honest with you, from LSU. Maybe a little light, but for what we need for this team, we don't need someone to come in and be a Tavius Robinson. We've already got a Tavius Robinson. Van Noy and Owe are both under contract for this season, and I believe that's it. I could be wrong.
Yep, and same with Lele. By the way, a lot of people
Yeah,
forget he's a free agent after this year, and
right.
the Voorhees has only played 4 games in 2 years. Of course, we knew his first year was going to redshirt, but this is why I'm asking this, because personally, there are 3 guys I'm looking at on the offensive line. I'm gonna bring this up real quick. I apologize, Coach. Let me bring this up. Uh, skip ahead to the O line.
I like
But
how you organize this. Mine's a little wider, the one that I sent you a link to, but I like how it's organized. Yours is tighter from a width standpoint, so it'll fit because you just got the last name. So I really like that.
thanks, man. There's guard centers, or it's really guards that we're looking at here. Tyler Booker, Gray Zabel, Donovan Jackson, who did a great job moving to tackle. Ohio State doesn't
Hmm.
win the national championship if Donovan Jackson, who was their left guard, doesn't move to
Yep.
left tackle and play well there. I mean, I look at those 3 guys, and I think all of them would be not only upgrades this year potentially, but when you're looking in the future for
Booker. Booker's
Voorhees,
instant upgrade over both of our guards that have played the last 2 years. Not even
right?
close.
And
A
I
fine-
mean, Harbaugh may want to slow play him, that kind of thing, like he did with Orlando Brown. But I'm just saying, worst case, all 3 of these guys, not only for this year, but for the future, Coach, with Lele being a free agent and Voorhees with that injury history, like it'd be hard for me to pass on those guys. Something
Agreed.
is telling me though that one of those edge rushers, and you see the depth in that edge rusher class from Abdul Carter, Walker, Mikel Williams, Mike Green, Izira Raku, Stewart, James Pierce, Scorton, like it's mathematics, Coach. One of those edge rushers is going to be
Yeah.
there too. So that's why I wanted to ask the question. Like, I'm going to try to nail you down on this. Do you think the Ravens have a preference in that first round O line over edge?
The difficulty will be, if you're talking about if under some scenario the top 3 guys on your list for guard center are there, and if you were to white out or cross out the top 7 guys on your edge list, if I'm comparing Pierce, Scorton or Scourton or Stewart to Booker, Zabel or Jackson, I'm taking Booker. I'm not passing on Tyler Booker. I see it differently than some others do. Not Ravens people, but I mean national analysts have talked
Right.
about Booker. I see it differently. I don't see the same type of guy. I'm a big fan of Donovan Jackson. Now, let me ask you. I just got the chance to watch Zabel film yesterday, so he's one of 3 remaining offensive linemen I haven't watched film of. Mbow, him, and I believe it's Lampkin, the guy from North Carolina. I haven't watched those 3. Is
Right.
Zabel comparable to Booker and Jackson, or would you say he's in between them?
Well, the difference for Zabel is that he played tackle, and he's going to
Yeah.
get that center label because compared to Booker and Jackson, he is a smaller player. What I'll say to anybody out there, and I want to bring up some comments here in a second, Coach, but for Zabel, the last box for him to check was the level of competition, playing at the
Mhm.
smaller school. So when he went to the Senior Bowl, and Scott Kennedy has some excellent video out here on
He
YouTube
did well there.
of man, he did so well on there. And when I was watching the combine, Daniel Jeremiah threw in the nugget that Gray Zabel was being called out by the defensive lineman. He was so good that they wanted to get a rep against him to prove themselves, to make a name for themselves against Zabel. I've never heard a story like that come out the Senior Bowl. So when you're talking about a guy who has excellent tape, there's nothing you're going to find on the tape that's not going to wow you. You're just
Yeah.
like, well, these guys that across from him really aren't even challenging him. It's the fact that when he went to the Senior Bowl and he dominated that week, it was like the last box he needed to check off. So he's a smaller guy. He's not a beast like Booker or Jackson, different style guard, but I love him. I have him right in between the 2. And, Coach, I want to pause you right here. Wanted to bring up Heather. Always look forward to your content. Do you think we will keep Owe and pick up his 5th-year option or move on? We did pick up his 5th-year option. He's playing this year for, I think it's like $13 million on
Yep.
that option. So he will be a very motivated player, Heather, to come out and produce like he did last year, if not better. Whether we keep him or not, man, that's going to be a tough call. I think, the market will dictate. And of course, Coach, I don't know if you have any opinions on this, but Tyler Linderbaum, Kyle Hamilton, they're going to need contracts too, and I think that they probably take precedent over Mr. Oway.
Yeah, I mean, probably. I mean, Linderbaum is the guy that, from a salary standpoint, you look at, and well, for regular people like us, that salary number is, is huge. But he's such an integral part of what they get done out there. I wouldn't want to have to turn over, offensive line pieces so consistently every year. We turned over Zeitler, we turned over Simpson. Let's be honest, Simpson was. They talk about bridge quarterback. That's
Yeah,
that's essentially what Simpson was for a left guard. And then we had another bridge there last year, McCarry. Good for him. I'm glad he got the contract he did. But we can, there under no circumstances could we allocate money to a player. Could the Ravens allocate money to a player like a McCarry in the fashion that was given to him? Credit to him. I'm
yeah,
glad he got that money. Brandon Stevens, same boat. Or John Simpson, same boat the year before. We have made do with the interior. If it's the top three guys that are there available, excuse me, I'm going with one of them. I like Donovan Jackson much better than a lot of other people. I have seen some of the negatives um, discussed about him, and I value him more so in the 30 to 42 range, somewhere in that area. I feel like if Donovan Jackson is still on the board at the 40 or 42 time frame, I'll be shocked. And I'm willing to be really wrong, but let's do it another way. Let's say Booker, Zabel, and Jackson are all gone, and you're telling me I've got to choose between your next three or four versus the same guys that we talked about, Pierce, Scourton, or Scorton and Stewart. Well, then for me, it's probably Scorton or Scourton. I really like his
yeah.
game, and in fact, I prefer him to Shamar Stewart. And for me, it's not even close.
Nice.
I don't see I don't see the same technique, get off skills from a global standpoint with Stewart as I do with Scourton. What's kind of crazy to me is like and I mean, Shamar Stewart's going to be a really good player, right? He's an incredible athlete, and he's got a lot of physical gifts. He only had 4.5 sacks in 3 years. Scorton went there and had 5 sacks in 1 year, and that was supposedly a down year or lack of production. Well, what is 4.5 sacks in 3 years compared
Right.
to five? So for me, like if I've got Scorton or Scourton there, personally, I like him, but I also like the guy from Boston College. I think he's very underrated. Pronounce his last name for me one time.
Easier Uraku. Easier Uraku. So
Okay, that's what I thought.
yeah, Heather, I thank you for the comment.
I
Didn't
think
want to
he's
forget
I think
about
he's
you down
talented.
there. Yeah, Adafe is going to be tough to keep, in my opinion, Heather, just because of everybody, what coach is talking about, and the talent in this draft. Um, RG saying, giving some love to your guy, Braden Swinson. I like him too. Athletic, a little bit leggy, plays his butt off. I really like Brandon Swinson. Uh,
Closes space. Like he closes like a 6'8" small forward who blocks shots from the backside on the basketball court.
yeah,
He's just got incredible range. Again, I like the kid from Boston College. Like there's I got no problem if people are like, hey, should we let Oway go and draft a young guy like him who looks like much the same player, except a more refined uh pass. Nobody has a Euro step like that kid from Boston College. That's a sick move that he's got.
yeah. Coach, my notes on Easier Raku are just some of the more positive notes I have on anybody. I'm going to read them to you and let you build off of it. I made a note, his impressive three cone and shuttle. I mean, sub 7 second three cone, 4.19 shuttle. Those are the exchange of direction drills. And my notes were he's making tackles almost completely with dip, bend, lateral movement. It's a highlight package filled with tackles, having a hard time making any meaningful contact with his Iraku. He's unpredictable in his movement, coach, and mixes up his rush, mixes up his speed, mixes up his move, and he's smooth with those arm over counters. So what I like about Izir Raku, as I have on the screen there, he's got a full toolbox, coach. And maybe he's not as athletic. He doesn't have the first step like James Pierce does. He doesn't have the power and the disruptive nature down to down maybe of Shamar Stewart. But Izir Raku is a prospect that I'm really high on, number
Yeah,
24 overall on my board, and I think he goes in the first round.
He's got that ability, number one. Number two, he's got this like disappear move to the top side, speed rush, if you will. It almost kind of reminds me of a guy that I was a big fan of that played with the Lions and now he's with the Browns, James Houston the fourth. And he's got this like disappearing move underneath of tackles. But for a guy with his, height or quote lack of height, he's got pretty long arms.
Yeah,
And
34 inches. Yep.
yeah, now he does have great. I think he's got great burst and great pursuit. The first game I watched of him, I saw three loafs and I was shocked. I was like, wait a minute, this is not what, most people have said about him. I didn't see it in any other game besides that one. So it wasn't something that occurred multiple times because, that's rare, like at that level, to see a player literally just stand there. Now, I'm trying to think of the edge defender who was at Florida and then went to Ole Miss, Princely
Yeah.
Manmalayan. He's, I
Lamont
think,
Yellen. Yep.
yeah, he's a guy that had some really, really plays he took off at Florida, and there's film out there that really talks about it. And didn't see that at Ole Miss at all. I'm a big fan of the guy from Boston College, Coach Evans from Siptatow is one of the first guys that really mentioned him. If you were to ask me to choose from like this group here and the top three offensive linemen, it makes it a whole lot more difficult choice when you've got Stewart and Ezeraku on the board there. And again, I think that's an indication of how deep this draft is because you're going to get people who forecast, Stewart to be gone in the teens and
Right.
the Boston College guy to still be on the board at 35 or 38. So you're going to get a wide range of projections from people. And I think that's just an indication of how deep the draft is. It'll be a difficult decision, and there'll probably be trade back opportunities for the Ravens. And the good thing is the Lions right behind us, they need a defensive end edge defender bad. So one of these guys is on the board. It wouldn't surprise me to see one or multiple teams get with the Ravens and try to trade back. And if it's attractive, I'd say we should think about it. Look, the reality is for 2025, Ezeraku is not going to come in and start and play 40 snaps a game. He's not. I don't know who is that's going to be there at 27. It's not going to be James Pierce either. Because we've got guys that are really good against the run, Tavius Robinson. We got guys that are just good at everything, Kyle Van Noy. So I would really like to see us get a pass rush guy like Ezeraku is what I would prefer there. I'm a huge fan of Tavius Robinson. I think that he's earned reps and he's earned snaps, but he's not a pass rush guy. So, from that standpoint, you're using two roster spots for one player, but he's exceptional against the run, and he showed that late last year. I would really like to see us, if we were going to go with someone, I'd like to see someone with some refined pass rush moves. A Swinson in round 2 or Ezeraku in round 1 would be my option. Scorton or Scaltron if he's there as well.
So I want to bring Chuck Smith into this equation because, Shamar Stewart is frustrating with his lack of finish. You mentioned 4.5 sacks over 3 years. Some team's going to take him. You also mentioned, which I agree with, and I see that teams are all over the board. When you listen to guys with contacts like Mel Kiper, like Daniel Jeremiah, the guys that really talk to the front offices and the scouts, some teams don't want to touch Shamar Stewart. They see all these other options that we're talking about. They don't want to touch them. But, there are Ravens fans, and it's hard to disagree with, that if you get a guy with the tools, with the physical tools of Shamar Stewart, and you bring him in and you pair him with Chuck Smith, and you see how he's developed Adafe Owe in the last couple of years, where you say, look, give me that hunk of clay of Shamar Stewart, these, tremendous power, built like a Raven.
Very young, too, I believe.
Very young. Yeah, all these guys. I think Scorton, actually, who's not on the screen, is only going to be 21 this year.
Yep.
So, I do see a counter argument to say, look, man, as for me, coach, I like to see it like with Ezeraku, the full toolbox. I love that. He reminds me a little bit of Doomerville with the shorter, but with the long arms. But
that's a good one.
The counter argument, though, is, hey, let's get this guy with all these physical tools like Shamar Stewart. Let Chuck Smith. The ceiling would be sky high.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for this year, that's what's challenging and at the same time fun about the draft is that you get multiple people with different opinions, and but one person may be discussing or focusing on the 2025 season. Another person may have in mind or trying to balance 2025 with 2026. If you're drafting for the future, then Shamar Stewart is your guy if we have these choices available. If you're drafting for 2025 and a Super Bowl, he is not. I mean, I'm comfortable with whatever focus someone wants to provide. Hey, I'm also comfortable with if the Ravens move on from someone during the draft, the value of players, the value of contracts changes, particularly on draft night. I liken the NFL draft night to the trade deadline for other sports. So trade deadline for other sports, players
I
or
like
draft
that.
picks take a different value. Sorry if I'm echoing. Sorry about that. Um, and I think the draft is the same thing. When you go to pick, the value of it's almost like a stock price, I guess, in some ways. The value of a player or a contract that expires in 1 year at a certain position, it spikes. It might only spike for 3 minutes. That's got to be the challenge for the front offices. And for me, if we draft an edge at 27 and we want him to play in 2025, then we've got to move on from somebody. Otherwise, you're drafting someone at 27 who's not going to play a ton on the field. I don't see Shamar Stewart in run situations coming on the field and outplaying Tavius Robinson against the run at all in 2025. I just don't. And I recognize that that's not a popular opinion at all, but I saw Tavius Robinson kick ass against the Steelers and the Bills against the run. I ain't seen that film from Shamar Stewart
Well, you
as
need
far as
two
him
of them
making
though,
plays.
too. You need two of them though, too, Coach. Like
Yeah.
Malik was the other guy in those situations. So
Yep.
you need two edges in that 3-4 base defense. Yeah, man. With I think the Ravens always draft with future years in mind. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Marlon was a good example. Jimmy Smith back in the day didn't start on that Super Bowl champion team until the very end, made the play that won the Super Bowl. Like the Ravens and with Nate Wiggins last year, when we were coming into the season, we're like, all right, we got Arthur Millette in the slot. We'll have Kyle there. We got Brandon Stevens. He's coming off a career year. Marlon, do we need a corner? Not really, but Nate Wiggins is too good. So, like, the Ravens are always drafting with the
Mm-hmm.
future in mind. Hey, got a donation here from Heather. Really appreciate that. Really appreciate that, especially during the slow season. And even more important, I
Awesome.
always appreciate your support and your questions. It just means a lot to see everybody in here. Wasn't expecting anybody in here tonight, Coach, because draft season's just kind of slow here on the channel. So we talked about Stewart. We talked about Azir Raku. James Pierce, another guy. What I find telling on him, Coach, is that he's very high ranked on when you see top 50 lists and things like that, but he's rarely in the mock drafts in the top 32. That combined with when I've looked at scouting reports, anger management issues, coachability issues, a run in with police that was settled before last year. Like, character concerns don't always mean that, a guy's in trouble off the field. It could just be
Right.
practice attitudes, habits. Does he show up? Does he love football? That kind of thing. So James Pierce, I've seen people say, well, hey, don't be surprised if he falls all the way to round 3. But the
I
physical
don't see
tool,
that. That's not
yeah,
happening.
but the physical tools on this guy are tremendous too, man. Like the first 3 steps, the explosion, the wow combine that he had, the production that he continues to produce. My only knock on James Pierce is the motor, because I did see him half-ass some reps. What did I say? Excuse me for one more second, Coach. He cakewalks through the end of some reps was how I put it. But yeah, crafty, cerebral guy. Equally natural rushing from both sides. Noticed him coming off a right tackle, noticed him coming off a left tackle. James Pierce, an extremely talented edge rusher.
He looks like a guy that I think, depending on the team he goes to, I could see him playing 45, 50 snaps a game and really just getting, better as the season went on. He's got tremendous talent, first of all. Me personally, I don't get into anything that's not the film. Like, I just don't have time. And I think that's it ends up being a blessing or a benefit for me. I just don't have time to read stuff, or if it ain't on my Twitter scroll, or if somebody doesn't put it in the Discord for the Ravens or the Discord for the Lions, I don't hear about it. I really
Well,
don't hear about. I'm like a dog with blinders on. Film, 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 film,
Coach, I
and
want to give you my philosophy on this.
that's
Like,
all I got.
if it comes out like a week or two before the draft, I don't believe any of it. It's to me that's just the smoke screen. They're trying to get guys to drop.
Yeah,
Maybe it's a vindictive relative, like we saw in the past before. But when stuff with Pierce, like for the reasons I gave, when it's peppered in different people's scouting reports, and you notice things like he's always up in the top of people's like top 50s list, but he's never in the mock drafts themselves. And these
right.
are people who actually know what we have no idea about. Like, I have no idea. All I can, Steve, will like with you is the tape. That's when I start to question it and
Yeah,
start to and Stace, what's going on, man? What's up,
Stacy,
Coach
what's up,
DC?
man?
Yeah, Stacy, awesome dude right there. But yeah, with Pierce, I just like I said, I don't believe a lot, and I don't know anything. No sources here whatsoever. But when you see it over and over again, but the player coach, explosive dude.
Yeah, my first exposure, I had him against I had him against Donovan Jackson. You know, and that was not complimentary because look, Donovan Jackson's a professional offensive lineman,
Right,
and he's very experienced and he's a monster. He's a big dude. He's bigger than that. Now Donovan Jackson, next to a couple of the guys that played on the offensive line with him, they were a little bit bigger than him, and so he didn't look so large. I mean, I really do like Pierce. I will say this: out of all the edge rushers that I have spent time focusing on, I'm talking about, 3, 4 games each, and then cutting it down to 18 or 20 digestible plays in the shared document that I have sent you before. For me, James Pierce and Shamar Stewart and Michael Williams are the ones that I see as less game ready for every situation. Now, James Pierce is very talented physically, but and so is Stewart. Michael Williams a little bit slower for my money. Um, those guys are the ones that for me would be me personally. I would be less fired up about taking if you're talking about that top 6 or 7 group. You don't. Well, there's your board there. Your top, I guess, ending with Scourton or Scorton. Those would be my 3 guys that for me I don't see coming in and playing a ton for the Ravens. And I could be real wrong on James Pierce. My first exposure may have clouded my opinion on that one.
Well, hey, and the other thing is, Coach, it only takes one bad play, twisted ankle, to lose somebody, and all of a sudden these guys are going to have to play because,
Yeah,
a Jabo, you know what I mean, is up
we
in
want
the air.
depth.
He might not
Yeah,
even be right, and Tavius, not the most polished pass rusher to say the least. I want to ask, like,
no,
mid-round targets. My guy, Coach, I don't know if you have studied him yet, and if you haven't, apologize for putting you on the spot. But Oluwafemi Oladejo from UCLA, he is my positional favorite. And with my positional favorite, basically, Coach, it's guys that I like better than what I'm seeing out there in the mocks, because I put myself in the hole of just I don't want to like read anybody else's
right?
opinions until I'm finished. And then when I come out, I'm like, well, where the heck is Oladejo? Why am I so high on him? So that's why he's got the asterisks around him. But he's a late convert. He started off as a
Inside linebacker, right?
inside
Yeah,
linebacker,
yeah,
right?
okay, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
he just flashed and flashed and flashed again. 6'3", 259, nice long arms. He was flashing in those Senior Bowl drills. He was flashing in the combine drills, like with the easy bend when they were doing the hoop drill, the change of direction. And for a guy who just started playing edge rusher, I really like Oladejo. What kind of mid-round targets? And have you studied Oladejo at all?
Oladejo probably watched 2 games the last 2 days. Is my
Okay,
exposure to him. I'm down to you've got your board up there, but the one that I sent you, I think I'm up to 13 OLBs or edge defenders, and he's one of
right.
my last ones. Anyone who's got experience with inside linebacker, outside linebacker, I think's got to be Look, Malik Harrison served well in that role the last
Right.
2 or 3 years, and I think a lot of us were surprised last year at how many reps he actually got as the season developed. And we have to admit, regardless of what our opinion is, that coincided with us playing really high level defense for the last however many weeks of the season. I think for my money, and I know this is an unpopular opinion, the second or third round is where I'm looking for the Ravens to draft the edge defender. I think the drop off is, I don't want to say it's less severe than other positions. I almost think the edge defender in some ways needs to be treated like corner, maybe offensive line. I guess it's probably difficult to do this, but you can never run out of, you can't have enough good corners, right? You
Right.
can't have enough good offensive linemen. And I think to an extent, you can't have enough good defensive end / outside linebackers. I refuse to refer to them on first reference as edge defender because I'm old.
Yeah.
So, and I realize that ship has sailed. But the guys who can do a little bit of both, inside linebacker and outside linebacker, then I think they deserve a serious look. He's certainly athletic, number one. He took a couple of good pass drops that I saw as well, which to me screams, boundary side guy who can drop out a little bit.
Right.
That's not that of the players we have on our roster. Okay, let's be that role, that boundary side outside linebacker who can drop some. That's not Tavius Robinson. That's
Right.
not Odafe Owe. It's Van Noy. He's clearly very versatile. Van Noy can do anything. That
Do
that
anything.
fool, yeah, he a fool could roll out of bed right now and go play in a Super Bowl and get 2 sacks and a forced fumble. So I really like the second to third round, but I think the third round those guys might be gone. I think
You know what?
Swinson,
It goes back
Oladejo
to
are
our
gone.
it goes back to our conversation of like when I look at the guards early in the draft, there's a harder drop
Mhm.
off there. Like get your Booker, get your Zabel, get your Donovan Jackson early, because
Yeah,
I mean, in Stacy's bringing up Jared Ivey, another guy. I'm not sure he's a fit for us, Stace, because he's like a more 4-3 defensive end than a stand up outside linebacker who's like 250 pounds like we usually like. But like Coach is saying, man, that Swinson, he's another guy I really got to look at more that impressed me. The two Ohio State guys, Landon Jackson, like Coach, Princely Oman Mielin, excuse me, another good player. There's so much
yeah.
depth in this edge class, and Heather's bringing up something else that I wanted to get to. Who are we going to get to replace Michael Pierce? Do you think we'll stick with Jones and Matabeke? Of course, they'll still be on the team. Wish we have brought back Urban for depth. Any thoughts? I really think, Heather, that Urban will be in the Ravens' back pocket
Yeah.
if they choose to bring him back. Coach, you agree with that?
Good question though.
Secondly, this defensive line group, Heather, I think there's going to be somebody in every round. I mean, you look at all the color there on that defensive line group, and of course, it's just my opinions. But compared to other groups, look at how deep the defensive line and the edge group is in this class, Coach.
Yeah, it is. I think, and we kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier. When you watch the O line film, or we mentioned it before the show, excuse me. I spent so much time on the offensive line. I kept each game I was watching, I would say, who's that defensive tackle? Who's that nose tackle? And like, who is that guy? So I'm searching the roster for a team, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's this guy. That's I'm matching up the player on the field with the names that I've heard about. I'll be honest with you, I probably overly focused on offensive line, and I get it that there's people who overly focus on receiver, people who overly focus on edge defender. For me, from a reactionary standpoint, I overly focused on offensive line. But as a result, I saw the quality that there is from a defensive line standpoint. I do
Right.
think that this is a really exceptional draft for that. So was it Heather? I think it's
Yeah.
good question for real. I do think that Urban is probably back. I am fascinated with the fact that you watch NFL football and every week teams run the same plays. A lot of teams run the same defense. Why are we having Brent Urban line up a half a yard to almost a full yard off the line of scrimmage, and it's successful? What is it about Brent Urban that causes us to do this. And this has been across multiple defensive coordinators. So, like, there's something about Brent Urban that I think is very unique. I don't know what comparison to make. He almost reminds me of like that old ass basketball player in your neighborhood who, moves slow, but he goes out there on the court and he still scores 5 or 6 points every game when you're going to 11. And Brent Urban can just play. I do hope we bring him back, but getting back to the draft, we certainly should be in on a defensive tackle in this draft. How could you not with all the talent that's there? I really like Farmer from Florida State. I recognize he's inconsistent and, got some concerns about, maybe taking plays off or whatever. But, he's a guy that screams 3 technique for us at times. Far-fetched for us to get, Graham or Harmon from Oregon, who's a badass. Nolan as well. Those guys are, probably all gone.
Yeah, I'm wondering myself what the defensive line options will be there at 27. Farmer is my start guy, coach. He is the my guy. He just
Is that what the stars
motor.
are? Gotcha.
Yeah, an endless motor. I just love Farmer. The first game I watched, Florida State doesn't have a great defense. It was like a 10, 11 play drive, and Farmer's effort on the last play looked like the first play of the drive. He just reminded me of like that kid in class, the overactive kid that just has too much energy and has trouble sitting down, sitting still. That's what Farmer looks like on defense to me. He just can't sit still.
Love it.
I think he's going to be a really good player. Yeah. So are we rolling with TJ Tampa or draft a corner early? To me, RG, this is a key part in this draft. I wish I would have scooted the graphic over. You can kind of see my cornerback class over there on the right. The big board is actually pinned in the comments if you guys want to bring that up. When I present it here, it's a little bit small. You have to squint to see it. But yeah, we're going to have to draft corners because
you like Porter?
Yeah, I like Porter a lot.
Yeah.
Because we have, Marlon, of course, Nate Wiggins, but behind them, TJ Tampa hasn't really played the NFL. And then Jalen Armour Davis in the last year of his contract hasn't been able to stay on the field. You need 5, 6 good corners heading into the season, coach, with the depth needed in that position, the injuries. You're playing 3 corners at a time. So we're going to have to draft a corner. I know that you said that you were digging in to this draft. I think we draft 2. Who have you studied in that cornerback group, and who's stood out to you? Anybody?
So the 5 that I have significant film broken down of right now is Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame. Very smooth, balanced. I think a professional level corner from the way he approaches the game, the way he covers people, the way he uses his hands. I think avoids penalties. Very smart about the way he makes contact. Health concerns clearly with him.
Yeah, hip surgery in October. So who knows where he's going to go? But 9 interceptions in 31 games for Morrison was the stat that I grabbed. Go ahead. Continue, Coach.
Trey Amos is one that really stuck out for me and surprised me. I won't say that I didn't think that the film was going to be good. I was a little surprised at how good it was at certain points. I think I'm actually in my share job. I think I've got 26 plays of him where I try to present like a balanced look at it. And I think he's a guy that's going to go a little sooner than some of the projections are. Kind of happened to focus on him in a little surprising way. I was looking at film of other players, basically SEC receivers, and I found myself, okay, who's this little tough SOB down here? He reminds me of Amik Robertson, who plays for the Lions, except I think he's a little bit bulkier, but he's very combative and handsy at times, and probably there'll be that balance of trying to learn where you can and can't, grab guys or be a part of it. But I really like Trey Amos. And then Darian Porter, your guy, we'll come back to him. We'll circle back. I'll let you do that if you want. But the guy that really intrigues me and the best corner film that I saw was Maxwell Hairston in 2023.
Explosive.
Yeah, his 2023 film was first round, absolute star player. Now, 2024 film didn't look the same, not the same production. I think he had trouble with injuries, but I also think that there was, to a certain extent, people who said, "Hey, I'm not going to throw over there when I think they're playing zone," because he's got great instincts in zone, and he can almost kind of sit in between two routes, wait for you to throw it, and then impact it. And so, I don't know. I'm projecting a little bit there with Hairston. For me, if a guy like Hairston is there in round 2, and we've already addressed, offensive line or edge defender in round 1, we're going to have a heck of a decision in round 2. If you're talking about, and I don't think Hairston will be there, by the way. No, I don't think he will. But we're going to have a heck of a decision to make if there's a talented corner there.
I think what I like about Hairston is it's building off what you say. When he is in a zone and they're trying to over under him or whatever it may be, he knows that his burst is so good coming forward that he can, either bait a quarterback or he can sit back and kind of cover the deep guy, at least deter the throw to the deeper guy. And when the quarterback looks off, it's almost like he sees the quarterback give up on the guy and he just breaks forward and cuts off that. And man, I think he had 3 picks return for a touchdown. 3 of his picks went for pick 6.
2023, yeah.
Yeah, 2023. And what was it? He ran a 4.28, cool 4.28 at 40. So yeah,
very confident, very confident.
Yeah, you could feel Maxwell Hairston's energy. He'd be a guy, RG, that I'd be looking at in that first round. And I'm having a real hard time, if you guys pull up my big board, ordering these guys from like 22 to 30. I mean, Coach, I got Derek Harmon, Tyler Booker, Izira Raku, Walter Nolan, Shamar Stewart, James Pierce, Maxwell Hairston, Gray Zabel, Azaria Thomas. Like, Coach, these are the guys that are available at the end of the first round, which is why this would be a perfect year to trade back. And I don't know if the Ravens are going to be able to trade back because I'm sure everybody sees it like that. Like, there's just great depth.
I agree.
In the draft.
I agree. First of all, great depth. We touched on that in the pre-show. Number 1, number 2, awesome options there at 27. Awesome options to trade back, and I think that Eric DaCosta and those guys have to be willing to. I think they have to have looked at it and say, "Hey, look at what could be there at 32." And in some ways, it's not as deep as that crazy draft after the pandemic. That first crazy draft that was really like 1.5 or almost 2 drafts in one.
Right.
But I think it's closer to that draft than any other we've had since. And I really, I don't even know how many we've had since then. But
this is the 5th one, because that was my first one. Put my content out. Yeah, this is the 5th one since then.
I will tell you, even going down to like all the way down the end of your corner board, I like Zy Alexander from LSU. 6'2",
really? Okay.
6'2". Now he played in the SEC, so he's got some guys. He has film out there of guys beating him. But do I think he's a top 10, 12 corner in this draft? No, I don't. But I think that there's some talent there that someone will draft. Even the guy you have just above him, Frazier from UTSA.
Great, yeah.
I mean, like, you're telling me you have a guy who had 6 picks and 15 PDs. He's old, yeah. He's been moved around a lot. I think
tackling is my main issue with him.
Of course, absolutely. But you can't watch him and the height. He's from UTSA. The speed time in the 40, the hands, the ability to break on balls, and say he doesn't remind you of Tariq Woolen. You can't. It's the same exact situation. And so that guy is sitting, and I think you've got him in the right spot, Jason. I'm not saying you don't. That guy's sitting at what, 16 on your board? Seriously?
It's a deep. And,
so this is a great draft.
I want to get RG in here. Is Porter ready? I know it's his first time playing the position. Risk. Agreed. I mean, Porter is a converted wide receiver, Coach. For those that don't know, just a 6-year player, just 1 year starting at cornerback. He's a gunner. He's got blocked field goals, blocked punts in his highlight package, 4 career blocked punts for Porter. He showed up the combine, ran a 4.3 at 6'3", 195 pounds. And if you're playing special teams in gunner, that's 6'3", 195 pounds of toughness. He's got offensive lineman like arms. And when they put him at corner, he was just a better athlete than anybody he played. And he was playing in the Big Ten at Iowa State. Yeah, so I'm a big fan of Darian Porter. I
Two
think
players,
he'll
two
only
players
get
in
better.
this draft. My bad, Jason. Sorry.
No, I was just going to
My
say the 1 year of experience to me to get to RG to answer RG's question is a plus for me, RG, because he played corner like that. He's got that kind of tape, and it was his first full year playing corner. That's the kind of guy I want in the
Yeah, I
system.
mean,
Sorry, coach.
the good. No, my browser must have lagged for a second. It looked like you stopped talking. Sorry about that.
Oh, my fault.
No, the good thing, I think it was RG with the comment. That's what
Yeah.
you want. You want 4, 5, 6 people in the room talking about a prospect if you're trying to draft or if you're trying to discuss it. You want different opinions, right? That's what we
right.
want. We're supposed to celebrate diversity. We want people with different opinions, right? We don't want groupthink, and so I think that's awesome. I think Porter did play corner in 2023, though he just didn't start that year, but I could be wrong.
Okay.
I could be wrong there, but think of it this way: you've got two guys in this draft, Porter and Frazier, that if someone forced you to make a player comp for them based on size, based on speed, and based on ball skills, who's your player comp for both of those guys? It's Tariq Woolen. Like that's your player comp. That's an indication of what the draft offers in terms of talent. Am I saying, hey, there's first round players there in the second round? No, I can't say that. But what I'm saying is that there's a lot of ability, and if our front office takes the millions of dollars that's allocated to them every year and uses it wisely, there's no reason why we can't improve offensive line, corner, edge defender. The awful thing is that now we've got this defensive tackle to replace as well. So, we've got our hands full with those 11 picks. It might seem like, hey, we've got so many picks, we're going to hit some home runs. We got to be targeted. I don't think this is a shotgun draft. I think we got to be targeted with certain players, and that's what I like about shows like yours right now is that you've targeted players with different color codings for, I'm assuming, for levels. And I think you pretty much got most of these guys about where I do. I don't really see. I mean, the only other guy that I really like that I see a little lower.
Yeah, I want to hear it.
I do really like Emory Jones. I really do. Yeah, I do. But I don't think you got it. I think you got him in pretty much the right spot, right there near Belton. He's a guy that I look at and I'm like, he's not being talked about, but he's certainly a guy that could be moved over to guard if an NFL team wanted him to. Could I see an Emory Jones play in guard for someone starting next year? Absolutely. Could I see him, being a starting right tackle every game and being a high-level guy? I think he'd have some issues, early on. But again, I think that's an indication of doing your homework in this draft and targeting certain positions. So it's a great group.
So I like this comment we got from Josiah Pierre Lewis. Thanks so much for checking in. We need a 3-tech coach, no nose tackles. I'm not sure what the Ravens are thinking there, but I think there are some Travis Jones type players who are kind of a combination. I look at Kenneth Grant, might be an option in the first round, or Derek Harmon. I mean, yeah, they can hold up against the run, and maybe they're not 10 sack guys, but they're going to create a lot of pressure. A guy like Walter Nolan seems like he's got the first step where he could do both. His run defense numbers were awesome. Farmer. How would you characterize we lost Michael Pierce. So like Josiah is saying, maybe the Ravens are prioritizing the nose tackle. As Josiah is saying, I don't want one. I want another 3-tech Matabike style. How would you replace Pierce in that offense or on that defensive line?
Yeah, it's so interesting. Like, I don't think Josiah's wrong. I think he's, touching on something that, really those. I think a lot of times those guys are interchangeable. Watch the tight end with so much motion by tight ends now, so much, Y off. Those guys moving from one side to the other. We know the tight end ends up into the boundary, almost an overwhelming amount of the time. But Watch the tight ends trade. See what happens to the D tackles. They switch. I mean, you don't want a 1 and a 9 or a 2I and a 9 to the same side where the tight end is because you got a 2 gap bubble. So,
Right.
for a lot of ways, those guys are interchangeable. But not to downplay Josiah's comment at all. I think he's right. I would look for me personally. Again, I mentioned Farmer earlier. Harmon is just maybe Harmon's more of a nose tackle, but he gives off those like kind of like Leonard Williams vibes, and I do
Very
think Leonard.
disruptive. Very
Yeah,
disruptive. Right.
yeah, I think Williams is like a little longer, maybe longer arms, but when you look at the measurables of Harmon and Leonard Williams, it's borderline. I mean, it's a mirror image. 4'9", 7". I think the arm length was between like a 1/8 difference, something like that. Same height. So again, there's player comparisons in this draft to look at and get excited about. And I don't think Josias is wrong. Me personally, I agree with him. I would like to see a 3 technique. We feel like we've got one or two already, right? Travis Jones is a guy that I want to see on the field a lot, particularly in passing downs. And so, whatever we do draft from a interior defensive line position, I'm not sure that I'm personally willing to allocate as high a draft value as others are. So basically, a first round draft of a defensive tackle for me, I feel like leaves a big hole out there at offensive line and leaves a big hole out there at corner that I think we do have to address at some point. So I don't know. Maybe you or others have a different opinion, and that's fine too.
So, yeah, Josias, I love this comment because this is exactly, the kind of stuff I'm thinking about when I'm stacking the board. And I have 2 players that, like, I've been going back and forth with Derek Harmon and Walter Nolan, which one to have in front of the other. I mean, they're right next to each other on the board, but you have 2 different style players. The reason I have Harmon higher is because I think that he is more of a Ravens body type player that they like, where, yeah, he's not a nose tackle. He's more of a 3 tech, but
Yeah.
he is just a big, stout, Raven looking dude against the run. And so I think ideally in this class, Josias, we don't have to, we can have our cake and eat it too. Like the guy, we don't have to have just a run stuffer like Michael Pierce. We can have a guy like Derek Harmon or a guy like Ty Robinson later on, who can stop the run but also pressure the quarterback. Like Haloti Nada is a great example of a guy, coach, who could, he's a nose tackle if you want him to be. He can rush
Right.
the passer if you want him to be. So
Leonard
that's
Williams.
ideally what we want to get there, Josias. Also, there's another question here.
Do you
Excuse me.
think?
Go ahead,
Do you
buddy. Good.
do you think the drop off? I would cede to you here because you're at 100 or big board 100. I'm only on about 50 as far as the players I would feel comfortable offering some type of evaluation before. Compare the drop off for guards, not centers,
Right.
for guards to interior defensive line for you because I want to know. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm interested.
the color coding kind of sells it all. And this is, so just to go over it for those who don't have access to the board right now, the green would be guys that I'm predicting to go in the first round. I think they go. The guys in the orange are the next tier down. Those are guys who are definitely getting a second round grade from me, a true second round grade, which is a plus starter in this league. The purple guys I'm predicting to go on day 2. The blue would be day 2 picks / day 3 values. And then the red and the gray, the difference between there are your draftable players. And in the gray would be the guys who, if they make it undrafted, would be priority undrafted free agents. So that's what the color coding is. But to answer your question, Coach,
Yeah.
So you go to, the guards. I have what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Basically 9 in the blue or above. Those would be the guys that we're targeting. And on the defensive line class, there are way more than that.
Yeah. So I kind of set you up there. Sorry.
Okay. Go ahead. No.
No, I mean in a good way to basically reinforce what I said a moment ago. What it sounds like I'm hearing is
Get your O-line early.
yeah, we could draft the defensive lineman later, and that's what I felt watching because, again, harkening back to how we talked earlier, the depth that's there at the defensive line. Also, like even the edge defender position, you've got Eman Malayan, pretty far down there. He's a guy who's got ability.
I
You know,
mean, really. Yeah.
he's a guy who's got ability, and so again, I think, and maybe it's my own perception, my own focus was on offensive line. So I want us to get a Tyler Booker. I want us to get a Donovan Jackson. That's possible too. I'm willing to admit that. But I do think that there's significant talent at defensive line for us to kick that can a little later down the road. I don't know how far down the road we need to kick it, but I think the offensive line and the corner and maybe even edge defender, whoever falls to us, it's going to be a unique draft for the Ravens. I certainly don't hope we just sit and pick like we would like to at times. I hope if we need to move up 10 spots to go grab somebody, let's go do it.
I mean, I would love that. We seem hesitant to do that. We should have did it last year with guard. I mean, there were so many that went off the freaking board in round 3 and they just dried up real quick. Coach, yep. I love this question by Osmond. This is why draft season is my favorite, because we're doing a show. We're supposed to talk about this. And now I get a Chase Lunt question. Love this from Osmond. Why do you have Lunt so low? Shouldn't he be up as the same level as Emory Jones, who Coach just talked about? So I want to tell you why I got Lunt so low. And the beauty of the draft, the beauty of the draft, Osmond, is because we could disagree on this. And who knows? Nobody's right. Nobody's wrong. Only time will tell. But Chase Lunt, Coach, 6'7", 304. Okay, so he's light in the pants. He's got some of the quickest feet. I said quickest feet in the draft, probably. He makes move blocking look easy.
Wow.
The outside zone teams are going to love him. But it's 6'7", 304. He's going to need a couple of years in the weight room to really be stout enough to handle the NFL power. So, Osmond, that's why I have him there as a draftable player and not a priority. But I totally understand if he's a guy, he could easily go in round 3, round 2 because of the physical talent. Coach, he's got typewriter feet at 6'7".
Wow.
He's an impressive athlete there for UConn. So, but yeah, he does get kind of tossed around a little bit, as Stacy just commented. Osmond, thank you so much, man. I love talking to the draft.
I've been a little more like focused on. Okay, so let's say that we don't get the player offensive line at 27 that we want.
Right.
I've been trying to mentally prepare myself and search for, okay, who's the tackles that look like, and I guess maybe that's why Emory Jones kind of stuck out to me.
Yeah.
Besides he's got a cool name. The tackles who look like they could play guard as well. And so for me, I kind of gravitated towards some of those guys.
Have you seen Anthony Belton yet from NC State, my starred guy there, my positional favorite?
He's got about 10 plays. First of all, he moves really well for being a big body. Right. And I found him to be a guy who, while he was on the move, he was like reaching out and moving people while he was moving. And so
his strength
worked on his track. Yeah, it was weird.
His strength is so insane. He looks like a Raven to me, and he's one of those guys, Coach. Why I mentioned like Emory Jones, where you brought him in right now, he's an NFL strength guard, and his Senior Bowl was impressive. You watch those one-on-one reps. If you YouTube it right now, one-on-one.
Oh, Belton.
Anthony Belton, just stopping Mike Green, just stuffing. Like, he's an easy mover, my positional favorite. So Emory Jones can definitely play guard. Belton could definitely play guard. Wyatt Milam is going to have to play guard. There are a bunch of players. Cameron Williams from Texas. I'm not as high on him as other people, but I think his best position is probably going to be guard. So yeah, Coach, I feel like this draft, if you add the tackles in, that the number of players who could play guard is pretty high.
Belton to me looks like a guy who's going to go earlier than many project him to. I think Belton is a guy that might go 10 or 12 picks sooner than whatever consensus is. The strength is there, number one. For his size, he moves well. Like I said, You
The
know
body
that.
control too, like
Yeah,
he's in control of it. Yeah, go ahead,
yeah.
coach. Sorry.
That part kind of. I've only got 10 plays on him, and look, I'll be honest with you. I have to give a shout out to Coach Evans and Sip Tally, Cole Jackson, and Mike from Deep Cover Pod.
Yeah, Michael Crawford, absolutely.
Yeah, shared I've shared film with them and others, many other people too. But I've shared film with them, and then they've shared that I've already cut. Meaning, okay, I've cut these 30 plays of this guy. Do you want it? So you don't have to watch the whole game, and you can just watch the cut plays. And then they just shared the same thing back to me. Cut down my time significantly for a
That's
number of
excellent.
players. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
hey, I wish I had that kind of relationship with some of those guys to do that. These I've just been pretty much just watching it once, taking detailed notes. But yeah, the cut
Well,
ups.
you hammer through it because you're way faster than me. Like I'm half the speed of you here, getting 50 done, and you're
Unfortunately, coach,
100.
that's all I have to do. That's
Yeah,
all I have to do is watch the draft. So yeah, a lot of late nights by myself. But yeah, man, that's shout out to Coach Evans. One of the reasons I started YouTube. I love him.
yeah, absolutely. Belton.
Cole and MC, just one of the nicest people you're ever going to meet.
Those guys gave me some film of Belton that was cut, and I watched. I think probably by the fourth or fifth play, I was like, "Holy crap!" Like this is you watch some of the SEC offensive lines, and like Will Campbell. He's a guy that I think's in a bad stance, and I don't think that stance helps him at all in certain situations.
Can you change that? I mean, because he's just looks so used to it, but it is so
Yeah.
awkward looking. Like what's your as a coach, what would you do with Will Campbell? Do you try to break it down and build it back up, or do you say, look, we're just going to have to, tweak a little bit here and there, but let him do what's comfortable to him?
I mean, some people would say, "Oh, well, I don't believe this." Let me start with that. Some people would say, well, the lack of ankle flexion or tight hips means he can't get down into a lower stance. Well, that's not true. Watch the guy move post snap, okay? But what it leads to for me, that high stance where you don't have the ability, it's almost like a receiver who's standing straight up at times. You know how we have these running backs now that stand straight up and they almost look like they're in no
The
stance?
statue, right? The
Yeah,
statue.
put a put a receiver in that stance. What's a receiver going to do? He's going to false step. He's going to have to bucket step to get out of there. And in some ways, perhaps it's a poor comparison. Those offensive linemen, they're standing straight up. The left tackle from the Bills, same way. Super talented, big guy. Why is he in that stance? A couple of reasons. You're pulling, a lot of times they're pulling on those log plays, but Campbell, false steps, number one. And number two, it offers him significant trouble, that stance, stepping to his left. He's a left tackle, so stretch left, stuff to his left. He's got significant difficulty getting out of that stance. Stuff there he's stepping to his right, he does not have the same issue. It's related to how high his stance is. I don't think it's related to ankle flexion. I don't
Wow.
think it
Okay.
has a I don't think it has a damn thing to do with arm length. This is just my opinion. And I will say a little bit of input and explanation from some other people that I know who are high level offensive line guys. So, they're probably more intelligent than me about the position. But getting back to, some of those guys in the SEC, occasionally you'll look at a tackle out there, even a Will Campbell, and be like, okay, he's really good, but he's not this monstrous person who can still move. And Belton is. Belton is a monstrous human being who can still move. And so you get this sense like, wow, that's an NFL left tackle right now from a body and
Yeah.
athleticism standpoint. No concerns about movement, no concerns about arm length or any other crap. And so when you have Belton starred, that's just indicative of me that you clearly did your homework, because out of all those guys, other than Josh Simmons, who I think is the best of all of them if he's totally healthy, is Belton's got it all.
Yeah. Ursery's an interesting guy too, because I don't know if you've seen him, big guy out of
Yeah,
Minnesota,
Minnesota.
but he does the Orlando Brown thing, and he's a better athlete than Zeus Jr. But he just blocks out the sun. His arms look so long. I don't know what they are, but they got to be long. Where it doesn't look like he has to try. They're actually only 33 and eighths. But this guy plays so big, so long.
Right.
It doesn't like DeJuan Jones coming out of Ohio State.
Ohio State.
No effort. low effort for Ursery. He'd be a guy, coach. I wouldn't be surprised if a team grabs him in the back of the first.
Well, yeah, I think there's 6 or 8 players across the board, different positions, that the way that I try to explain it sometimes is, hey, I think he goes in the particular player. I think he goes in the 38 to 45 range. But it wouldn't surprise me if there's an NFL front office out there who's picking at 24 that takes him because they recognize, okay, he's here now, but he won't be here when we draft at 56. Or whatever the situation is. So I think there's about 6 or 8 guys in this draft, and maybe more. Again, that's another indication for me that the draft is deeper than initially presented or described by many popular evaluators, because there's players who will go earlier because NFL front offices see the potential. I think we've got a good foundation, a good baseline with this draft, and I think we've got better top-heavy players. It's just not at quarterback. It's not at receiver. That's the reason why you probably don't have them on here.
No, I showed you before when I bring up the thing, it's so damn small, so I had to zoom in.
Understood.
That's just a zoom in on the middle, but yeah, I have the link to the big board and the tabs in the description, so hopefully people can follow that. But coach, before I get you out of here, there's another guy I wanted to talk about. I believe I forget who it was, but brought up Jared Ivey and saying, look, Stacy. Yeah, Stacy likes Jared Ivey because I said, well, he's not a stand-up linebacker. We probably won't take him. He's more of a defensive end. And Stace is looking at him more like the Brent Urban replacement. There's another guy, Stacy, that I bring up. Gave him a second-round grade. He's the last guy, I believe, in the second round for me, second-round grade, and that's Alfred Collins from Texas. I like him, and I like his teammate Vernon Broughton. Both these guys who could play that coach defensive end type Brett Urban type role. Like they just look like that old school 3-4 defensive end who can just provide length, get their hands up in the passing lane, play the run, and be a menace on some of these shorter arms, lighter left guards.
Yeah, first of all, we've got a great group on defense. We don't need a whole lot. We hope that Trenton Simpson is going to develop and going to be that guy that plays a lot. If he doesn't, we're gonna miss Malik Harrison. If Simpson doesn't develop, I think he will. But that boundary, what you're describing in my mind is the boundary side guy who can be a 3 technique sometimes, and he can also be a 5 technique, but to the boundary.
Yes.
That's the guy that I think our defense, and it sounds like to me a couple of other people have kind of talked about Ivy would fit that bill maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I like Alfred Collins.
Yeah, those guys, those Texas guys on defense. If I haven't, to be honest with you, I've got 3 Texas defensive games to still check out there. I'm not I tend to start with the Big Ten, and to be honest with you, every year because I know so many people are going to start with the SEC, and I also know that once I do get to the SEC, I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. I'm not moving on. It'll be 24 hours before the draft. I'll still be watching SEC film. But it's also an indication that you've got 2 teammates, Collins and the other guy was it
Broughton. Yeah, I keep looking at him and wanting to move Vernon Broughton up.
Look at the separation you've got. Some would say the separation you've got between the 2 of them, but both of them are guys that for your money and your evaluation can step in and play. I wasn't as high on Walker from Kentucky, but I know that his 2024 film. Supposedly he was out there playing with a back that was still in recovery. So maybe the 2023 film would give a better indication of what he's capable of. He's a tough one
for me, coach. He's a tough one. They don't make human beings like Deion Walker.
Yeah.
But I was watching, I think it was the Alabama game, and he was done for after like a second and a half, 2 seconds of a rep. It was just like the out of gas,
What shocked me, or I should say shocked, what really held my attention, multiple nights in a row watching the film was seeing guys like Dylan Fairchild, the guard for Georgia,
Yeah.
win reps against Walker outright, 1-on-1. And I don't mean every single rep. I'm not to say because then the next play Walker would kick his ass, and so 2 plays later it'd be somebody else. But point being, it seems as if the offensive line and the defensive line is really the foundational element of this draft, and maybe that's why so many people don't prefer it or don't like it or want to disparage it
Yeah,
because
because it's not the sexy positions. So,
yeah.
Coach, I want to get you out on this. I feel like this draft overall matches up really well for what the Ravens need. Number
100%.
one, the Ravens do not need immediate starters unless there's injuries. I'm getting my face back up. I don't. That's a little uncomfortable for me. A little too close. But yeah, we need a starting corner, no doubt about it. We need depth, a linebacker that might be able to start. But other than that, it's depth on the offensive line. We only got Ben Cleveland basically and Nick Samac. We need a lot of depth on the offensive line. We need depth
Yep.
at corner. We need depth at linebacker. We lost 2 linebackers. We need another safety. But like we need a wide receiver to fill out the room. But all these needs, Coach, are it's not like we had to replace Patrick Queen, Jadeveon Clowney, like last year, Geno Stone, like last year. They're all like backups, depth draft in a draft that has plenty of depth. So I feel like, Coach, this draft in particular matches up really well with where the
Mhm.
Ravens are as a franchise. Can you speak to that? Agree, disagree, or take it where you
No,
like it?
I think you described it very well. I think it's accurate. Um, but it also like you are doing this from a Ravens perspective. I do, but I do a significant amount of Lions content, and I intentionally try to do Seahawks content because I want to challenge myself to try to juggle as many things as I can, in all of this. And at some point, when I'm done, I'm just done. But for you to say that is different than for me to say that because you're focusing on this from a Ravens perspective, and I think you're recognizing the reality of it that I agree with, that it does set up well for us. To also tag on to what you said a moment ago, I think our offensive line is at least -2 right now, and I think that -2 is obviously left guard, and then you know, uh, or at least at minimum, if people don't like hearing this, I get it. Uh, Guard competition for Voorhees and Falele. If you're not willing to accept that we should have some competition for one or both of those guys, we just don't have the same standard of expectation for what this Ravens team can do. I think Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry are worthy of us putting out there the best offensive line we can. But corner, we're at least -1, like you said. Inside linebacker, we're at least -1, probably -2. But a guy like the UCLA guy, number 2, the outside linebacker, he would fit the bill because he could theoretically be an OLB or an inside linebacker in a given situation. I don't know if he's going to be as good at that as Malik Harrison at times. So I tend to do minuses. Would you agree that we're -2 offensive line, -2 linebacker, maybe a 1.5, but definitely a 1, if not 1.5. Corner, we're -1.
At
Uh,
least I would say 2 on that. Yeah.
yeah, we're on the same page there, and so for this draft, if you were to do a heat map of the positions, I think what you and I just agreed upon, just agreed upon, excuse me, lines up with those minuses that we just assigned to each position.
So, Coach, I have to. I would just want to rant just for a second. It's not going to be a long one, I promise. But like, I feel like the defense is going to be pretty good, almost no matter what. I don't want to say be too cocky with it, but you got Matabike, you got Hamilton, you got Roquan, you got Marlon, you got Stars. Defense is going to be fine. Um, it goes back to the offensive line for me. If you protect Lamar and give Derrick Henry running lanes, we could be missing his A Flowers or whatnot or whoever take. We're going to be a very good offense if you have a very good offensive line. The only thing that can derail this team, really, come playoffs, the offense that is if the offensive line is getting beat like
Yep,
Fale getting beat against Buffalo. Um,
turnovers or the
And
offensive
turnovers.
line. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I mean, the offensive line has something to do with turnovers a lot of times too. You force a bad throw, that kind of thing. Not that didn't happen last year, but you understand what I mean. I just feel like I don't feel like the Ravens have the same priority as or the same urgency that you and I do when it comes to this offensive line. Because if it was me, I would just say, look, let's sell out on this offensive line. If Lamar's protected and Derrick Henry has room to run, this offense can be borderline unstoppable. And that's my
It already.
philosophy.
Yeah.
And I'm worried that the Ravens don't have that same feel. I feel like they're going to be like, oh, we're good with Fale. Like, oh, we're good with
Yeah.
Voorhees.
I agree. I agree totally. It's almost like, um, you know, sometimes people in groups of friends say he or she settled when they got married. They settled. That's almost what this feels like with Falele. Like, oh, this is good enough for me. Well, it's good enough for you because we had Derrick Henry and because we had Lamar Jackson. Let's do it the other way, just for a moment. Let's switch Kevin Zeitler and Daniel Falele from 2023 and 2024. Let's say Falele played right guard in 2023 and we didn't have Kevin Zeitler on our team. What impact would that have had on our team in 2023? I think it would quite obviously have had a negative impact. And if you don't agree with that, or you don't like my analogy, maybe I didn't present it well enough, switch it the other way. Put Kevin Zeitler on our offensive line last year at right guard. We don't get our ass kicked in weeks 1 and 2 against the Chiefs and the Raiders. Maybe, just maybe, we win one of those games. We, of course, could have won both. Anyway, we get to the end of the season and we've got another win, and the Bills have to suit up and play in Week 18 to try to win their game. What I'm saying is maybe we end up playing the Bills at home in the divisional round,
A thin
not
margin.
starting 0 and 2. It's a thin margin. The margin was made thin by the guys we had at right guard and left guard.
Yeah.
That's the reason. And so I don't think you're wrong. And we didn't plan this, you and I.
Right.
I ranted immediately after the Bills game and said, if we want to win any type of football game, we need to improve the interior of the offensive line.
I mean, your two best players are Lamar and Derrick Henry on offense. I mean, they're right there in the backfield. So, I learned to accept it last year, but I didn't like it. You know what I mean? But I hope, like, if a Tyler Booker if we pick a Tyler Booker or Gray Zabel or Donovan Jackson in the first round, me personally, no matter where I end up having them ranked on draft night as I adjust this board, I'm just gonna be thrilled. Just gonna be delighted.
The thing that I have considered, and feel free to cut me off or mute my mic if you need to go, is like I'm a huge fan of Booker.
Right.
I like him better as a day one starting guard than Donovan Jackson. However, I also recognize that we are simultaneously thin at tackle with this team. And if we want to look at a player who played tackle like Zabel, who projects apparently better as a guard, or a guy like Donovan Jackson, who I don't think is a long-term starting tackle in the NFL, but however, does have good film.
Could get you by. He could get you by a couple of games. Right.
If we go that route in round one, I understand it. The talent that will be there at 27, I recognize, and people are not wrong for saying you shouldn't go guard in round one. Cool. Not normally, but we have one huge gaping, spot on our offensive line, left guard to fill. Unless you're absolutely sold on Voorhees, fine. I'm not sold on either one of them. I'm just not. My standard is perhaps unrealistically high. I think Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry are worthy of that type of focus like you described. Right. How many more years do we get those two together? It might be only one. I would love for them to extend out Derrick Henry. Certainly not for anything near what, Saquon Barkley got. But if they announced tomorrow, hey, we've brought back Derrick Henry for 2026 as well, you wouldn't be happy about that? Why not? He's going to be a great freaking running back. I don't care if he's 34 years old. The guy can play. Exactly.
You got to recognize an outlier when you see one. That guy's not human.
So we're in a unique spot. We're going to have talent there at 27. We're going to have talent there at 58 to draft. We're going to and all those picks in the 5th and 6th round. hopefully we use those to build depth on the offensive line. We should have done that last year, and I recognize that maybe people have tuned out. Forgive me for hearing you rant and then me, but I'm going to continue to mention this name. The Detroit Lions with a high-level offensive line left last year. You know what they did in round 6? They drafted Christian Mahogany, who had injury problems. Supposedly, one leg is apparently longer than the other, or something like that.
Right.
And he got an opportunity to start 2 games last year. Played his ass off.
Did he? Okay.
Yeah,
I
played his
didn't
ass
study.
off.
I didn't study it. So yeah.
Yeah, so for me, we sitting there drafting the guys we drafted at running back and quarterback, and a guy like Christian Mahogany still sitting there. I think you've got a great point that we seem to be a little presumptuous, or a little whatever the word is, about our offensive talent, because it is so great. I don't want to say neglect the offensive line, but not focus on it as much as we could.
Yeah. Build a powerhouse. So yeah. So with that, Coach, I'm going to cut it short for tonight. We're coming up on an hour and a half, man. Really proud of the support that I got on this stream. I know off season is rough. I know the interest in the Ravens games is much higher than the draft. The draft is, my personal favorite time of year other than game days. And Coach, you really helped out. You really helped me out. Kick it off strong, man. Like, just great
Fun.
discussion. I hope you don't mind if I tweet this video out.
Yeah,
give it some
absolutely.
love, because I'm really proud of
I would.
the discussions and the people that chime in tonight. Thank you to everybody for coming in. Coach,
Yeah.
what do you got going on the channel? Please fill us in here.
Well, like you said, I mean, it's not much. I refuse to put my channel at risk and put college film out there. It's just, not a smart decision for me to do so. So I won't do that. I will tell you, Jason, that comparatively, focus and interest on the draft between Ravens fans and Lions fans is night and day. It's just Ravens fans are way more interested in, willing to discuss, projections, possibilities, what could be, what players we need. It's not that I think Ravens fans are just a little bit more of a hardened group. We've been through so many wars and so many seasons of we're close, so we don't win. We're close,
it
we're close,
matters,
so we don't
bro.
win.
It matters. Our best
Yeah,
players in franchise history. Ray
yeah,
Lewis drafted, Ed Reed drafted, Ogden drafted, Suggs drafted.
yep.
I mean, yeah.
So anyway, it is difficult during draft season. I mean, I cannot in good conscience put out a video talking about the best offensive linemen in this draft until I've gotten through 15 of the offensive linemen from a serious study standpoint.
That's right.
And I'm at 13 right now. I'm at 13 for the off, and what I would consider serious study. I just can't. There's something inside of me that just won't allow me to do that, and I don't know what that is. And then for edge defender, same thing. I want to put out those videos badly and just at least talk about the players, and like you did, put the players, the names, height, weight, and all that stuff, production.
Right.
And I just can't get those things. I just can't do those things until I'm done with the study. You were a little bit ahead of me, but it was nice when you messaged me and asked me to come on, because the last probably 36 hours, I think I got 6 players done. I was like chewing.
Motivated.
It did is chewing through it. Ken also asked me to come on, and I'm, excited about that too. The draft is just fun as hell. And so anyway, forgive me for digressing and ranting a lot earlier, but we've always got stuff going on in the Discord, the Ravens Discord. People are just so active and so prepared. I've been really blessed by the group of people that are in my Discord, and almost all of which are a member of my Patreon. It's just been, my wife and I just continue to be amazed at people
crushing it. You're crushing it.
Yeah,
man.
People willing to donate a little bit of money, $5 a month, and join the Discord and be cordial and disagree and then move on the next day. You know how people hold on to shit and argue for weeks about stuff. People don't do that in the Ravens Discord. They'll disagree on a player, and then the next day they just moved on. I don't know why.
To you, man. Hey, that's a credit to you, man. They know the vibes. They know the vibes.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, thank you, but it's just been so. While I agree with you that the draft season is challenging, man, that group in the Discord has, they've really pushed me at times, because man, you get done with the regular season or the playoffs, excuse me, and all of a sudden you've got a certain figure of money you're making every month from YouTube, and that just drops off a cliff. It it impacts you. It does. But the draft is a lot of fun, and just saying, nope, I'm going to do this come hell or high water. So I'm not there yet, but close, hopefully, to being able to put out some content on position groups and my opinions on them, which you allowed me to express tonight. So thank you for that.
Hey man, if you need me to do a show since you don't got no tape, you got I got your back on that.
Yeah, man, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I want to get into more of that. The way you and other people present it, I guess through StreamYard is the best way. I need to get more familiar with that platform to be able
That's
to do
all
that.
good, bro. Yeah, we can. Yeah, I'll talk you through it. We'll get there.
Yeah, man,
There.
sounds good.
So, hey, with that, I want to just say thank you to my football family. Love my football family. We will see you guys next Monday night at 9:00. And, stay tuned. Check on the big board each and every day. As I do more studying, go back to my final looks. If I run out of all 22, I'll look for TV copy and just be able to watch the cut-ups of the TV copy that you see on YouTube. Feel free to comment, DM me on Twitter. Really appreciate you guys and all the support that we get. Highlights are on the channel to keep you busy too. If you want to look up, offensive line highlights from the Ravens, defensive highlights, it's all right there. So special thanks to Coach DC. Love you guys. We'll catch you next time. Coach, say goodnight to the people, please.
Yeah, man, appreciate it. This is my first one, I think, really in draft season. So this was a good one to start it with, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Coach.